Welcome back to Questions and Actor, Laurent Pitre. My name is Laurent Pitre. I'm the host of this show, or whatever this human experiment that this podcast is. And we have, as you heard, a guest. We have the most amazing, elegant, fantastic,
Oh,
magical, wonderful, interesting, special. Who are you again?
I'm Amber Dhall. Hi.
Hey, Amber. Amber and I go way back. But
Yeah.
let's get into it. So tell us a little bit about that question. Like, I love starting with the who are you, but who are you when you are in a state of flow or creative
Oh,
process? Who do you feel like you are when you're in those moments?
I love that question. I think my idea of flow state is just feeling so grounded and focused and disciplined with what I'm doing that
Mm-hmm.
all of my attention and passion and energy can just literally be like focused like a laser onto that one thing. I'm very
Mm,
type A, so I think that it's a good balance of being healthfully productive, if that makes sense. So it's not being productive for the sake of being productive, but because I genuinely care very deeply about what I'm doing and the quality of what I'm doing. So I think creative flow state is just like the satisfaction of getting shit done the way I want to get it done.
mm.
Yeah.
That's nice. I love
Yeah.
that. That's great. That's great. I love to hear that. So let's turn back time and dance into your past and tell me a little bit about like where did it all start for you? Where was that
Oh,
magic moment or moments or realizations where you had this inkling that you would want to pursue a career in the arts?
yeah. I think it's funny because I every time I get this question, I always say it was never a moment for me that I knew. I think it was almost like as soon as I knew it was a thing, I
Mm,
was like, "It's that. That's what I'm gonna do." I probably, like I wanna say I was probably 5 or 6 years old when I was like,
mm,
"Okay." I think I wanted to be a singer for a while, and then I had a very come to realization moment where I was in my room singing. I realized it wasn't great, and I was like, "Well, I need to be good at this to pursue it." So,
mhm.
the next best thing is I'm gonna be an actor. Um, and I basically didn't I'm South Asian. It's not really the most amazing thing to bring up to South Asian parents off the get-go. So I kind of hid it or kind of kept it to myself for many years and realized
Mm,
or kind of kept in the back of my mind that this is something I always want to come back to and pursue up until I was 17. And
mm,
I, up to that point, had not even I've maybe done one kind of pseudo theater show. I didn't really do anything. Film was kind of what really kept me attached to that dream. Film and TV has always been something that's just like in my like very a safe place for me. So I always knew I was gonna kind of pursue it in some way. And then I got to high school and I was like, well, I know I want to go to school for this. I have not done a single class. I've never been in a play. Like, mama needs to get to work. Something needs to happen. So I had a careers class in high school where we basically got to write essays about what we wanted to pursue. And I was like, this is only going to go through this one teacher who I'm never going to see again anyway. So who cares? So I basically wrote this big essay about how I wanted to specifically be an actor and a producer.
mm.
And my dad found it in the printer. And that's how he found out that this is what I wanted to pursue. And he brought it up to me one day in the car. We were like driving from somewhere and he goes, hey, so I saw your essay. And I was like, oh, what essay? And he goes, the one where you say you want to be an actor. And I was like, I think time, like, slowed down everything. I
Wow.
was, like, waiting for the words, like, disappointment or something, like, crazy to come up, and I was, like, getting ready to shield myself, and he was like, "Why would you think that you had to hide that from me?" And I was like,
Mm,
"I have no clue, like, I don't know what the expectation is, I don't know anything, I," and we had a really amazing conversation that I'll never forget where he basically was like, "Listen, I don't have to tell you that this is a very hard industry and this is not something I anticipated that you would want to pursue. but if this is what you really want to do and you're going to kind of show all of us that you are committed to this and this is not just, something you want to do for a week and leave, this is really, really, really what you want to devote your life to, who am I to stop you?
Mm,
And that meant so much to me, and B, kind of led me down this path of being like, okay, if I want this, like, I have to be ready to fight for it. To
mm,
not only prove to others, but to myself that this is something that I feel like I have a calling to. And so I just kind of went ham for the latter half of high school and signed with an agent and did some like lucrative scene study classes online. And knew that I wanted to go to NYU, which is where I study now. And somehow, some way, very gratefully, and thanks to the help of Laurent, who helped me prep basically for like 6 months, got an early decision in December of 2021 is when I found out.
mm-hmm,
And it's all been craziness from there. So it kind of was a buildup of
mm,
moments. And I think that has made everything since then even more special because it never felt like
mm,
I just, had it in my hand. It felt like I always and continuously
mm,
still do have to work for it. And so it's just
mm.
made everything else puts everything into perspective, and you really feel like you gotta there are high stakes around pursuing this. Yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
really that's really interesting the way you put that it's a series of moments, and it's so true. I think as actors, like, it can be quite challenging to know when is that moment where you feel even the confidence to call yourself an actor or an
Yes.
artist, right?
Oh, yes.
So I can
Yes.
really relate to that, and I love that you talk about it being a series of moments that gave you the confidence to have that. And yeah, maybe just to put a little talk about our time together when it was working with you.
Yeah.
I just had the blast of my life working with you. It was
Aw.
so much fun, just like diving deep into your goals and into your aspirations and working one on one
Mhm.
on picking also like the monologues that meant the most to you.
Yes.
And really, we ran that whole process almost reverse engineered. You remember, like, we kind of we just decided you were in, and now that you're in,
Right. Right. We had the
how do
letter.
we find our way back? Yeah, and it's so funny that it relates to how your dad found out that you wanted to be an
Right. Through
actor and a producer was through a letter of intent, like a this is what I want to do. So
Mhm.
it's almost like by writing into that existence, we cemented this kind
Yeah.
of like this it's gonna happen. And just
Yeah.
like the more we worked on it, we had just such this belief that it was like, of course you're in, you signed it, the universe
Right.
had it, you
Right.
put it up
Right.
where you could see it. I'm curious if, because it sounds like you did it almost a couple of different times. Have you integrated like that kind of practice in your life now since like you went to NYU? I also know you've done some incredible stuff there, and
Thank
and
you.
and really really expanded as an artist and a producer and an actor. So
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about your time at NYU. Maybe bring us to like that first moment or the first audition, or tell us a bit about
Yeah.
that process too, because I'm sure there's a lot of people who would really love to know what the heck does it take to like get into those schools? Like
Totally.
what did you perceive from your perspective, and maybe even from the first year there, and what you perceived how other people got in, and stuff like that.
Totally. Yeah. I think it's so funny because when we were talking about kind of our time together, and I remember one of the first things that we did was I kind of mentioned to you, I have no like, I don't know even what techniques are out there. And I remember there was
Mhm.
one day where you basically just kind of gave me a rundown of all the studios at NYU and some of the more, prominent techniques that a lot of actors use. And so for those who don't know, NYU kind of runs in a studio system. So there's about 10 different studios. A lot of them are affiliated with bigger acting studios in the city. So we have the Stella Adler studio, the Lee Strasberg studio, the Meisner studio, a bunch of, all were surrounding basically different techniques. And so I remember going through with you, and you were kind of gave me like a crash course. And I was like, what I don't even like, I can't conceptualize or wrap my head around what these techniques actually mean to me. And I think
Mm,
that's been the best thing I've gotten out of NYU. I'm in my fourth year now, is that I really have kind of been led through a process for 3.5 years. And then I've finally been able to take a step back and be like, okay, this all was to just basically get a tasting of all these different
mm,
things and to build my own process.
mhm,
So it's just funny that we, talking about that time being like, wow, I actually understand now, all these years later, everything that we talked about. But yeah, so back to the audition process, it was definitely intense. It was the kind of deal I made with my parents was either I got into NYU, early decision, made it happen, or I would do a basically like a business degree in Canada. So all my eggs were in one basket.
uh-huh, yeah,
And no one wants me to do a business degree. Nobody, nobody wants me walking around with that. Okay.
uh-huh,
So, I basically had to prep the general application, which is like the common app for people who kind of know the US. Canada University is very, very different in terms of the application process. So it was a lot of academics and some standardized testing and recommendation letters and things. And then the artistic review process was specific to the drama program at Tisch. And from what I remember, it was basically we prepped two pieces or two monologues. You at the time it was on Zoom. I don't know if they've gone back to in person, but we would basically be like you picked a day, you'd be put in like a Zoom meeting with 30 other students who were all like smiling and eager and wanted to kind of like put their headshot right next to them. And I was like, whoa.
wow,
Um, and then you would be kind of let in one by one with an adjudicator who
mm,
you would do your two pieces for. Some of them may ask only for one, some might do two. I did two. And then you'd have about a 10-minute interview about the process, your work, your mission statement, I guess, as an artist, or kind of what's driving you or calling you to NYU. So it was a lot of prep work. I remember that semester of applying in my senior year was one of the most intense periods ever, because not only was just doing so much and having to be so intentional and mindful with every single part of the process, like using my student brain and my newly formed actor brain, um, but also I just didn't know if it was really feasible. I really felt like it was a shot in the dark, and but I
mm,
believed, in my heart of hearts that it was, if it was meant to happen, it was going to happen, and that it was going to happen. But there's always that voice that does say, you're going to put X many hours into this. Are you just kind of making a fool of yourself? Like, and so there was one moment in our time where I think we'd worked on a monologue for, I want to say, like 2 months. And then maybe it was like 2 weeks out to the audition. And I got on Zoom with you and I was like, Laurent, I can't do this monologue. And you were like, what? And I was like, this is not calling to me. There's something about it that I don't feel right about. And it truly was just me psyching myself out. But
mhm,
that I feel like was the last big obstacle I had in that audition process, because it was the moment I had to kind of put the stake in the ground and be like, I need to feel confident in how I walk into that Zoom meeting, because no one else is going to be there to kind of hold my hand and tell me it's okay. So I need to make a decision now that I'm going to be fully okay and proud of the work that I'm doing, and
mm,
let that lead me into the audition and beyond. Because if I continue to kind of be in this space of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, it basically is like 2 feet out. So I
mm,
always could like think of that moment as the moment I decided, okay, like if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna be proud, and I'm gonna go in and see this as an interview on both sides, because I could
mm,
change the monologue up to the moment I get into that Zoom meeting. So it's up to me to commit, basically. So yeah, so that's kind of a bit about the artistic review process, and a little bit, I mean, about like my time there, just briefly. I think the way the program works is it's 2 years at a primary studio. So it's kind of, they kind of call it like the Harry Potter sorting hat, where they place you in a primary
yeah,
studio based on your interview. And then after 2 years, you can kind of move around between all the other 10 studios. So I did 2 full years at the Meisner studio there. Loved Meisner. Meisner has made me such a good listener and such a more active, present actor in scenes, because all it was repetition techniques and activities and like really intense circumstances to just make you listen and be a good scene partner. So I loved Meisner for that. Then I did a year at the Atlantic Acting Studio, which is practical aesthetics, which is basically all rooted in scene study. That was amazing because I didn't have as much scene study um, practice, I guess, at Meisner because of all the activities. So getting to really hone all the craziness that I did into scene work and analysis and group scenes was really helpful. And then I just finished a semester at Stone Street, which is a screen acting studio. And that isn't really revolved around a technique. It's more about getting you exposed to life on set. So you kind of circulate through different roles on a crew. You're constantly just getting up and working. And it's a little more about making your own process and being less precious about the work because it really like the turnaround is you're doing like 4 scenes a week and they're short scenes like Atlantic in my third year I did a 25-30 minute like rehearsal project we call it that was we worked on through the course of 3.5 months. It was really intense. This was like all right 2.5 scene go up now, let's tape this. So getting into like muscle memory of it for a film setting was so helpful, and then you also get to meet industry people and just kind of it's like a good segue into graduating. So every studio I feel like I tried to plan it so that they kept building, and everyone was not just a completely different thing but kind of complemented something that I was looking to add into my toolkit. So yeah.
Wow, it sounds like you really made the best of that time there, and it seems like you
Yeah.
were like with what you were given, you were intentional throughout the whole process. So that's really, really cool that you were able to balance, like you said, this craziness with a bit of the structure of the practical aesthetics, balancing out the
Yes.
Meisner, which is all quite wild and instinctive. So yeah, you had a balance
Yes.
there. And then again, I think it's very astute that you then took your final year to study the craft of on-camera acting because there
Yeah.
is some differences in whether or not it doesn't sound like it's too intellectual. It sounds like it's very practical, which I think is
Yes.
also a huge benefit to you because then
Totally.
you're getting a year of experiential training, which I
Mhm.
think is much more valuable than just like a quick like 1 semester class of like, oh hey, you're about to enter the world. And to be very honest, like film and TV or on-screen work can make you a lot more money, sadly, than
Right.
most theater gigs. So
Right. And
it's not bad knowing how to do that.
yeah, I feel like I also knew early on that I think because I'd never been exposed to a lot of theater as a kid, I came in and did theater training and was like,
Right.
this is so helpful as an actor, but I don't know if this is totally my fit. And in full
Mm.
transparency, also I deal with a medical condition that causes weakness in my arms and my legs. So my physicality as an actor on stage is also
Mm.
limited. So it always did kind of feel like I don't feel totally there. But as
Mm.
soon as I got to Stone Street, the on camera, which sometimes I think has a rep of, because it isn't technique oriented, some people are like, what are you getting out of it? But it just was so nice to throw away the kind of like art school, drama school bubble of I can go and roll on the ground really well for you for 30 minutes if you'd like to see that.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
feel like, okay, how can I take everything that I learned in the theater setting, all of that craziness, and now make it practical? Because
Mm.
I don't want to people to see my process. I want to know my process and then it'll show through in
Mm.
my work. Like I don't need to show you all the voice work I've done for 2.5 years. I want it to be so embodied that it's just there. And I'm still very much actively working on putting those pieces back and back together. I don't think I'm in a place where I'm like, yeah, I'm done training. Like I'm done in studio now. I just finished an academic semester in the spring, but I definitely want to keep training at studios in the city and things. But yeah, it was really nice to be like, A, this is so practical and so helpful to translate everything I've done. And B, I just love on camera work. I just love that energy and that feeling. It's just there is something different for me about it. Not that I would never do theater, but I just knew I was like, okay, I think this is my medium, and I think I should lean into it rather than try and be like, oh no, I'm not a serious actor if I don't want to be on stage all the time. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Very cool. I would love to know too about like so you must have done also a few like public performances with the
Hmm.
school, but also while you've been in New York, Did you also do some on-screen productions too? Tell me a bit about those? Like, what were some highlights, some lessons that you got while finally
Yeah,
putting your craft to practice with all those tools that you're getting from school? And when you put them out in the real world, what did you learn from that? What did you experience?
totally. Yeah, I think I mainly stayed within the NYU student bubble when it came to productions and projects, but I think that was nice because we all were kind of learning together. So I was lucky that I didn't have the pressure of it being okay, like, Tisch drama student, go show us what you can do. We kind of all were students still.
Mm.
So I did a production starting my sophomore year. The first big production I did was the end of my second year. And it was a play called POTUS. And to
Oh.
this day, one of the most incredible, like, rehearsal processes I've ever been part of. It was a lot. Our director, Sophie, who I'm still in touch with, she actually just made her off-Broadway debut in a show, so
Oh.
she's doing amazing. She was, like, our TA and then became our director.
Oh, cool.
And she was so amazing and just, like, making sure that all of us got a Meisner actor rehearsal process, but also
Mm.
kind of kept to the structure of what it means to do scene work and what it means to do a performance like 5 times in a row and keep the same freshness and aliveness while still honoring the text, not to be like the text. But yeah, so that process was amazing. And then I started to basically do shows. I think I might have done a show before that. I did one show before that actually, and then I did two shows after. The biggest one I did was at a venue called the Tank in New York. It basically was a student play that I did that transferred there for the summer. And that process was interesting. I loved the people on it and I loved the play. It was a very fun, dark comedy, but the lead of the show, basically in the fight call of opening night, injured herself. And so the third show of the run, I had to swing the lead. And I
Wow.
found out at 8 p.m. the night before, and we had a noon show. So that was really intense. And nothing I'd ever experienced up to that point. And thankfully, the actress who was in the lead, she's okay. She had a recovery period. It was really awful. But that taught me a lot about, like, this is the now, the craft and the analysis and the ensemble work and all that stuff you have control over, and then somebody gets injured, or you know like curtain goes on before you think it needs to, and like things like that happen, and then all of a sudden you're kind of needing to keep 2 feet on the ground.
Mm.
So that was the first big slap in the face of, like, all right, this is also a commercial off Broadway show that just runs, so you need to kind of keep up with that.
Mm.
um, so yeah, I think I did one more show after that that also might be at the Tank coming up, fingers crossed. So that'll be nice to be there again. And then I did, I think, 4 or 5 student productions. The biggest ones were the last two I did, which were an intermediate. So basically, in the film and TV program, you have an intermediate film, which is like your thesis of your junior year, and then you have your
Mm.
thesis film, which is like the last film that you make as an undergraduate. So those are the films you want to do because they're bigger budget, bigger crew, all that kind of stuff. So I got to do an intermediate last fall, and then I did a thesis the spring of this year.
Mm.
And both of them I was the lead of, which was very different than I had ever experienced. And I'm so grateful to those directors for, like, leading me through that. And they both came, I just got the cuts of both of them, and both of them are amazing. And I think they might do festival circuit, which is really fun because I've
Nice.
not had anything go through festivals yet. So that'll be really cool. One of them, it was like a really moody, surrealist, like leaning on surrealist drama. And then one of them was a high school mockumentary. So
Oh, wow, fun.
vastly different, but
Mm.
both kind of tapped into um material or characters that I kind of always gravitated towards during my time here, which has been really cool. Like the one of them was like a very moody, kind of deadpan, like she's going through a lot, but she's gonna fight you with a like the just like a feisty resistance. That was really fun. And then I just love the type A mockumentary. Like she was a model UN high school student.
Oh.
So it was very fun to kind of like get to dabble in both and be like, oh, these are two things that I've actually really gravitated towards in the work that I've done here. So yeah, still very early on in that career of everything, but those were really, really awesome projects to be part of. And the crews were also like, they were big crews, and like everything just felt like it was running very professionally, which was a really good simulation of, more independent stuff, I would say. So yeah, it was fun.
Wow, that sounds awesome. That sounds like
Yeah.
it's really cool because again, you got the opportunity to kind of show your range too, right? A little bit of
Yes.
drama, a little bit of comedy, which I'm
Yes.
sure is going to be helpful again as you're approaching the end of your time at NYU to have a little demo going, have
Yes.
a little like
Well, yes,
range.
that has been the biggest thing, is getting to pull clips that I actually look good and they're not just me in
Hmm.
front of a blue background.
Yep.
Yeah, that's been I also feel like the comedy side of it, I was so cautious, especially my first 2 years, to call myself a comedic actor, because I
Hmm.
just felt like my first intro to comedy was clown, which
Wow.
we did part of, and then we did it for 2 years at Meisner, and
Wow.
God bless my teacher, Chris, because he, like, really did change a lot of my viewpoint on, like, not just comedy, but just, like theater and like plays and film and like what it means to be like an actor that always brings joy to their work and never
Hmm.
lets we call them the flops, never lets the flops get in the way. But because of my work in that class, I always was kind of like, damn, am I not funny? Like, laugh. So I didn't know. And then I felt like as soon as I kind of just started working on comedy material that I felt like called to me, like a lot more of the dark comedy satire stuff,
Uh,
I feel like I really found my footing and really loved it. So it's been nice to say, oh, hey, I did a mockumentary and actually it came out great. And I felt really happy with like me feeling like I was like in a comedic ensemble of actors and kind of like just like
mm.
riffing. And it was a good like pat on the back of like, okay, maybe you can do comedy work.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's so cool. So before we get into kind of what you see for your future, I still want to focus on this path that you followed there, and I know that you've created your podcasts even before you went to
Yes.
NYU. You've always
Yes.
been very involved with like any community, like wherever you are, you create community. Like you
Thank
said,
you.
you've always been a producer mindset too. Like you're just someone who gets things done. So tell me also about like your course, and maybe we might have to go before NYU to really understand where you
Yeah.
began as a producer. Tell me more about like
Yeah.
that, because like you're not just like a producer, like like, everybody let's go. You're kind
What
of
movies get made?
the way I've been seeing you is you're someone who wants to bring people with her, and like you, even the way you talked about this comedic film you're in, it's you always have a sense of collaboration,
Yeah.
of cooperation, and of lifting people up, like rising with other people, like being the rising tide. So tell me a little bit about that and about your journey as a producer too.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Yeah, I think the reason that I feel like producing specifically always called to me was the fact that I didn't grow up, again, like I mentioned, around theater. I grew up around STEM kids who are another breed of crazy. Like, love them
Hmm.
down, but oh my God. It's like I half of them knew they wanted to be doctors in the 4th grade. And I was like, I don't. This is crazy. But I think just the idea of being in very academically like rigorous centric environments, and there was an emphasis on just always like, you could venture and you could explore topics you wanted to, but you always needed to know how to translate them into that setting. And
Mm,
so I kind of did lean into this idea of like, I love film and TV. I've never really been around, you know, the work itself up until my like last 2 years of high school, but I'm really interested in how the business of this all works. And because this is, it's a business and there is a corporate media side to all of this. And so I think trying to remember, I think the first time that I guess ever quote unquote produced something was I was part of this like small student film, little network that we made like a short film together. And I got to kind of help, I guess you could call it like a creative producer of some
Yeah.
kind. It was very, very lucrative, but it was really fun. And I remember being like, oh, this is really fun to kind of, I don't want to be the writer director, but I know what a writer and director would need in the room to get their job done. And I was like, I kind of like the fact that I can manage all the logistical pieces, offer creative feedback, and then also help with location scouting and like all the nitpicky things so that I can be of service to the creative, even when that's not my creative forte, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that part of it just became really, really cool. And then I kind of really leaned into that. And as soon as I got to NYU, I took a minor in it. And then I was like, well, I want to try interning because I want real world experience in this. And I want to see whether this is, really what I want to do, or if I want to maybe stay more independent and just kind of produce small stuff. And so my junior year is when I started. And I've done 4 internships during my time at NYU, which is I didn't even think I was going to do, 2 at one point. So I'm really, really grateful that I got to do 4.
Yes.
I've worked in development, which is like script coverage and pitching content and things. I've worked in festival judging with the international Emmys and kind of helped like screen things for them. And then over the summer, I was with AMC Networks, which was like such a dream. I was an original development and production intern on a scripted network and an unscripted network. So I got my taste of reality, which is really interesting. And that was everything from giving feedback on scripts and looking at coverage to helping in pre-production meetings to editing episode descriptions and like watching dailies of things. And then lastly, right now I'm with NBC on their casting team. And that's been really interesting as both a producer and an actor, just kind of get exposed to what it's like to see working actors come in and what breakdowns look like, and just see the team get excited about projects, and just everything from that like network perspective has been really eye-opening.
Mm.
So I just think it's kind of grounded everything that I've been interested in as an actor in the sense of, well, this is a commercial industry and I am somebody that kind of likes the challenge of that. And the challenge is always, how do you maintain creative integrity in a place that wants to monetize everything that you do as an artist, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to be on that more corporate interny side of things and see how that works from like bigger companies has kind of been like, well, there are people on these teams that are filmmakers or writers or actors who have come to this because they want to bring all of the spirit of what they do independently to this because they know it gets a wider audience and has a bigger budget and things. So yeah, it just kind of like really, really blew my mind and made me really fall in love with this industry, especially from the film and TV side of it even more. And just being smart about like, I learned how to verbalize why I liked the things I liked. I learned how the projects that I'm a part of, like what it means to be part of that project as an actor, what it means for, how does something get picked up? How, what is like hiring SAG actors versus non-union actors looks like. So there's just so many things that I feel like I picked up that have been so helpful. And I recently this year I've started more independent producing. I'm working on 3 projects right now as an associate producer and supporting producer. And they're really one of them is a student project and 2 of them are independent projects outside with some really, really cool people. So
Wow.
that's been a great like learning curve, but so, so gratifying. So it's just been something that's always just complemented my work as an actor. And I've always said, like, I feel like my work as an actor and producer run, or at least my passion and my interest run in tandem. They run very parallel. I don't really feel like one is above the other. Sometimes they are,
Mm-hmm.
but I just I always, every time I'm producing or like when I was working this summer, I was like, God, I miss acting. And then every time I'm in studio, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get out and just like, bring this whole like reinvigorated love for it back into a room with executives and talk about something that they're casting. And yeah, it just is always, it's those 2 things. It also is a great way to stay in the industry and make money and like be able to get a stable job, as a production coordinator or whatever that may be while I'm
Mm-hmm.
auditioning. So it keeps me in the world from all angles. And I don't think that any experience on either side could hinder the other. I think it only helps. And frankly, I have to look at it that way because that is a question of, okay, like, I'm graduating. Is it time to choose, quote unquote? And so
Mm.
I'm just gonna keep taking opportunities as they come and like riding the wave, riding the tide, and seeing what comes my way or what calls, I guess. Yeah.
Mm. So beautifully said. I'm
Yeah.
really curious, with what you just said there about like parallel careers of the actor and the producer. What would
Yeah.
you say are like the biggest things that you learned as a producer that help you as an actor, and the biggest
Yeah.
things you learned as an actor that help you as a producer?
Okay, let me tackle the first one. What are the biggest
Yeah,
things as a producer that helped me as
producer
an
to actor.
actor?
Yeah.
Um, I think honestly the biggest one is I'm not the most important person in the room. Sometimes acting school can make it feel like everything that we do in film and TV and theater is to serve the actor and the actor's process. And the good amount of humbling I got to be like, this is a small, small, small part of a massive fucking machine was really it alleviated the sense of pressure I felt, but also reminded me how collaborative and how sometimes above me, not above me, but beyond me, some of this stuff can be, and that I need to make an active effort to, like, understand who I'm working with and what I'm working on and what the end goal of the project is, and not just feel like I'm there to kind of, like, it's about me, and, like, I everyone
Mm,
is waiting on my work in that scene or my, what I'm coming to the project with. There is something bigger around me. And so being able to navigate that and learn how to handle that is really important, I think. The second one I think is just, like, being able to talk industry stuff. Like, I've
mm,
never read Deadline and Variety and IMDb, like, IMDb Pro News so much in my life. But it's so helpful to be able to, because that's the biggest way to start a conversation is, if you're in the room with, like, a casting director and it's really awkward and you don't know what to say, what are you watching right now? Or have you heard about this that's happening? And it's an immediate
mm,
conversation starter. That's one of my teachers at Stone Street would always tell us, is that, like, if you're ever in, like, cornered and you don't know what to say and you don't want to make it awkward and fake, like, you both are in this industry for a reason, talk about something industry related. So
mm.
being able to keep up and articulate how I feel and, like, know what's happening, that has been opened up so many conversations with people. And it's just good to know what this industry is, what you're getting yourself into. And I think the third thing, it's funny because I feel like I went into it and there's been a lot of times where I've been on the corporate side and have been like, "Wow, people are very pessimistic and are not happy with where the industry is." And it's true because it's been very slow and very hard, and everything keeps changing every single day, and, we have people that are not creatively minded or creatively focused that are entering the space, but there are still people that are in it for the right reasons, and getting to see that glimmer of, like, hope and creativity and genuine passion has made me feel so much more motivated as an actor to keep going. Because it doesn't feel as cloudy anymore. It doesn't feel like I'm, like, walking to the abyss of people in white suits who hate what they're doing. I've been lucky enough to I've seen that, but I've also seen a lot of teams that have just been very grateful to do what they do. And so
Mm.
it's kind of just made me feel like, as an actor, like, I still have a place here. And this is still an industry that it's cyclical. Everything will change, things come, things go, and I can just ride the wave. And when it comes to me, it will. And it's not a impossible anymore. So those are the three things on that side, I'd say. And
Mhm.
then as an actor to a producer, I think, like, one thing technically, being able to just, like, anytime I do script coverage, or I would just say, like, story, like, my instincts and my taste for story, I think I've really been able to develop as an actor that have lended themselves so well as a producer. The way that, like, we break scenes down, break character down, and we're doing script coverage every day as actors. Like, that's what we're doing.
Mhm.
We're analyzing. We just basically don't get to say whether we actually like it or not. And in this case, you do, right?
Mm.
So I think being able to get to the essence of a story and really break down what I like, what I don't like, all those tools really did come from the work that I did as an actor. So that's been really, really helpful. Um, I think the idea of, like, I just have an appreciation for production, I think, and like that whole world, because I think that sometimes feels like you do everything development and everything in pre-production, and then production happens so far away, and then it comes back to you, and then you're doing post-production, and you're doing all like working with post houses and things, and it feels
Mm-hmm.
like all of a sudden that was like the least important part, but that's the part where everything actually comes to happen. And I do feel like I have an appreciation and a respect now for crew and for actors and for people in that production sphere specifically,
Mm.
that you don't always feel like on that side of things, like is something that you actually look at, because they're not, maybe a network exec will go to set every so often, but like I'm not going to set unless somebody brings me. So it just feels like, oh, and they shot, and here are the dailies. So I have a respect and a love for that specific part of the process more so as an actor. And I think the last thing I would just say, hey, you know what? I think I'm gonna actually say what I said about the idea of like being able to talk. It's the same thing for as an actor in the producing world, is that I could talk about shows that I've seen or actors that I love, or things in the sphere of the industry happening that I learn about as an actor to the producing people. And it all kind of just like meshes in a way. So that I yeah, it I not to cop out and use an answer twice, but like it really does, just knowing how to talk about what you are consuming and what you like and what you don't like, and what the industry is saying about what you like and don't like, is so helpful on both sides, and makes you like fall in love with it over and over again. Every time I talk about it and I light up and my eyes get big and I'm like, oh my god, but wait, and I'm like crying because it's so good, and it's like so intense. It's like that is where I feel like I'm like little Amber in this room again, dreaming about what I want to do. Whether I'm in
Mm.
an office, whether I'm prepping as an actor, it's all the same. So
Mm.
just like learning learning how to verbalize and articulate what you feel can be so helpful, and bring together, like we talked about, that sense of community of like other people feeling the same way, just by what you all are collectively consuming and loving.
Mm.
Yeah.
So beautiful. Wow. Well, yeah, to hop on that point about little Amber in the office, what would you say as advice to her now, talking from the future to this version of you in the
Oh,
past? Like, what would you
yeah.
have said to her in that moment, as she's embarking on this journey to get into NYU? And, what would you say to little Amber as she was getting to start NYU? What kind of words of comfort or advice or encouragement
Yeah.
that you would give to yourself and to like anybody who's listening who has a similar dream of going to New York City and making it and having the kind of beautiful sort of path that you've walked down. So tell us what kind of advice would you give yourself?
Yeah. I think I would call in a conversation that I recently had with a friend of mine, shout out Sam. She graduated this semester, and we've been talking a lot about what that process has been for her, of not being in that studio system anymore, and
Mm,
auditioning, and as we all are, I've done all the stuff, and I'm still so terrified about what post grad looks like for me. It's part of the process, but
mm,
she said something so beautiful, that she basically was like, it is, when you come out of school, it is an intentional choice to remind yourself that you are an actor, because you're not always going to be in class. You are going to wake up one day and you might go to train, or you might see a movie, and that is about the closest thing you did to being an actor, quote unquote, that day.
true.
So waking up every day and reminding yourself, declaring, I am an actor, like going back to this thing that we said in the beginning, it's still so hard for me to call myself that, because I'm like,
Hmm.
well, I need my first IMDb credit to call myself that, or I need this, or I need that. Like it's
Uh-huh.
all these things. And so I feel like I would tell myself and anybody who's trying to join or start this process, that everything that you do from that moment onwards does not dictate whether or not you are still an actor. You are
Mm,
an actor because you decide you're an actor,
yeah.
and no quantity of what you're doing is going to change that. So and I think that like that something I've really had to work hard at in that sphere as well, is declaring that, and having believing I'm valued enough or I'm worth enough to, like, really, really believe in myself and put
Mm,
faith in myself to continue to do this. So, you know, just, like, sitting with yourself and being like, I am worth all of the pain and the, like, craziness and the, like, will I, won't I, that I'm going to experience to say that I'm gonna do this and that I am an actor, and that everything that I do moving forward is gonna be done, like I said in that moment where I put the stake in the ground and said, "I'm sticking to this fucking monologue," like, you like that, just like the commitment to yourself and to the work does not should not waver based on what happens along the way. And it's really hard to remember that, and I'm getting to a point now where I'm like, this is a test of all the, the, like, words that I preach, but I feel like if you can remember that, then there's nothing that can stop you if you really love it. You know what I mean? There
mhm,
really isn't. It's you. You are you will always be your own worst enemy. So
mm,
I would say, you are an actor because you say you're an actor and you're worth the trust and the faith to get yourself to where you want to be. Yeah.
mm. Yeah. You are also your best friend, the one who
Yes.
accompanies you
Yes.
along the way, right?
Yes, and you really kind of,
You're
like, not to, isolate, but you got yourself, and sometimes, you have to you're gonna have to rely on yourself, and
yeah,
you can either choose, am I gonna be my worst enemy or am I gonna be my best friend in this moment? And sometimes when everybody else is already playing the role that you don't wanna play, you know, be choose to be the best friend, choose to be the advocate because, you know, you deserve that. It sounds cheesy, but it's true. Like, sometimes we just don't believe that we are worth calling ourselves that or
yeah.
advocating for ourselves. And that simple, like, switch in your mind can really do wonders for you. And I'm really hoping I watch this back when I'm in my post grad spiral and remember that.
Yes, please.
But yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'll be like, "This episode, like, has 1,000 streams already. What's going on? Hey, Amber,
It's
you
all me.
okay?"
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's all me in the corner going, "Who said that? I don't remember that."
Oh, wow. That's so
Yeah.
good. That's so good. There's just so many pearls of wisdom you keep dropping in this here conversation. But before we end, what are the things that you find that you've learned as an actor that really inspire you in terms of your own humanity? Like that outside of the
Mm.
craft or outside of the business, what are like the main lessons that you're bringing into your life out of the artistry or exploring this or following this kind of career? What are the things
Yeah.
that you've learned for your life?
One of my acting teachers, I remember in my sophomore year going to the summer. I had a really rough summer after my second year. It was a lot of kind of like a very, like a preview of, I guess, a post grad. Like, what am I doing? I'm leaving my studio. I'm going somewhere else. I don't know. Think like life is happening. I need to keep training and keep doing things. Like, and I remember asking her, like, what can I do over the summer to keep myself trained and raw and fresh? And she looked at all of us in the room and she goes, "Live your fucking life." She was like, "The best thing you can do as an actor is to get life experience, get your heart broken, learn, like, what makes you cry, what makes you laugh, what brings you joy, like, those are all the things you tap into as an actor that come from somewhere, so experience them for yourself."
Yeah.
And sometimes I think with all this, the all the things that I try and get myself involved in, I think sometimes I can lose sight of that sense of just, like, humanity of it all, and
Mm,
that I don't have to do anything else but just, like, live my life and get and allow myself to experience these things because that is all gonna come back in one way or another as an actor. Um, and also I think in this I love when everyone goes, "In this current climate," because it's true. We are living in crazy times, but I think the most important thing that art and media can do right now is sometimes to remind us that the things that we are becoming normalized to are not normal. And
Mm.
that sometimes we actually do need to experience a discomfort of seeing something or consuming something that makes us think, not just for the sake of it, but just to remind us that, like, this is not a simulation, like, this is real life,
Mm.
and that just because it happens so often doesn't mean that we should turn a blind eye to it and, like,
Mm.
accept it as normality, you know? Like,
Mm.
we should not allow ourselves to be desensitized to the things that are happening around us. And sometimes it takes something that taps into your emotions like that to really remind you. And I've
Mm.
experienced that a lot over the last few months of just like watching things and hearing things and seeing things that have just been a really good like reality check for me of like, okay, what I do as a human does matter, and that I will not allow myself to be like, I'm overwhelmed by everything that's happening that's bad. So I'm just gonna like move on with my day because that's all you can do. You know,
Mm.
sometimes you do need the reminder that this is not okay. And the best way that can come a lot of the times is through art. So yeah.
Mm. It almost sounds like, just to reflect back those 2 points, but it sounds like acting has almost taught you how to be an active participant in your life.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
1,000%, and not just sit back and watch it,
Mhm.
like, watch someone else kinda live my life. I think
Mm.
that has been a tendency for me for a while, and getting to kind of, like, take back the reins and be like, "I'm
Mm.
living this life." And I choose how I move forward and what I do, and everything, like, it just, like, strips away all the crazy academic or businessy, you know, like that's the stuff that I love is like sitting and watching a movie or watching a play and being like, oh, I'm feeling so much right now. This is so insane. Also, I'm walking away a better human being because I just experienced something with 100 other people. We all collectively cried, laughed, had a moment of like, whoa, and that will be carried with me. And how I interact with people after this will be different. How I go back home and on the train will be different because of that
Mm.
experience. So it's just like learning to, like, experience life more fully, not being afraid to experience all the good and all the bad more fully. Yeah.
Mm. Mm. I couldn't end an episode any better.
I
That
gave you a
is
good
incredible.
outro.
You've got I've got too many good quotes. It's amazing. This is great.
Yes, that's
Thank
my
you so
job.
much, Amber. Before we close out here, I did want to just allow you to shout out how people can follow your journey. Like, where can people find you,
Yes,
and any
absolutely.
of the content that you have, or things you want to even shout out that aren't your own. Whatever you want to shout out, this is your moment. Like, tell us where we can find you, where
Oh,
we can follow.
well, you can follow me. I think Instagram is probably the most active on social. I am Instagram and LinkedIn, not to shout out the LinkedIn. I have a bit of a LinkedIn addiction. I'm like great, like trying to stop. I'm at Amber_Dhall on Instagram, and you can find me at Amber Dhall on LinkedIn. I also am finally polishing my website, amberdall.com. I don't know if it's going to be done by the time this is out. So if you see it and it looks crazy, just like pretend you never did. And I'll let everybody know when it's ready. But yeah, those are the three, I think, main platforms. And I just shout out Laurent for like you've been honestly such a constant and such a grounding person for me the last 4 or 5 years since I've known you.
Mm.
By the way, just quick shout out. I met Laurent in an acting class on Zoom. And it was an adult, like it was like an advanced acting class. I didn't know
Uh-huh.
that. I'd never done any
Uh-huh.
like it was such a random turn of events how we met.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
we connected and I was like, would you be willing? I'm doing this crazy thing and I've never done it before. And like
Yeah.
you've just been so patient and so supportive through everything, and I've seen things in me that I didn't even think, like, were possible, and sometimes you just need somebody else to reflect something back to you for you to feel
Mm.
confident in it, and you've just been amazing, so thank you for, like, just being such a guide for me and a
Wow.
reminder that, like, you can if you put your mind to it and you do the work, you got this. It's like I feel like you're such a testament to that, so
Mm.
thank you.
Wow. Amber, thank you so much. That's so nice of you to say. I swear this was not paid for.
No, I swear the sponsorship money will come in later.
Yeah. Well, as we're ending our episode here, you viewer or listener, please drop us some comments or some questions. If you have any questions, me and Amber will do our very best to answer as many of your questions and respond to the comments so that we can really continue this conversation. I keep forgetting to say this, but maybe leave like a review on the whatever Spotify or Apple or whatever this is on. I don't know how to do it, so good luck.
If you
Leave a
figure it
review.
out, pop it there.
If
Yeah.
you figure it out, put it in the comments so I know how to leave a review.
Right.
But
Right.
thank you for tuning in to Questions and Actor Laurent Pitre. This was Amber Dhall, and it was an absolute pleasure. And scene. Here we go.
Yeah.